You may have heard of BECCS. The term is being battered about boardrooms, chewed over in the corridors of power, and shouted from smokestacks. And no, I don't mean little Becky down the road. I mean BECCS, as in bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, though it could also stand for something else altogether. And yes, you guessed it, the Cheshire Cat is up to his old tricks again. So what is BECCS and why is everyone talking about it? Bioenergy with carbon capture and storage is a geoengineering technique first proposed 25 years ago that makes several tall claims. It isn't just a green and carbon neutral alternative to fossil fuel energy. It will also remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It is, in other words, a negative emissions technology, or NET, like the one used in tennis, but with less holes, one would hope. It's the perfect panacea to the climate crisis. No wonder BECCS is on everyone's lips. So how exactly does BECCS work? Quite simply, at least on paper. Carbon dioxide is sucked from the air by trees and agricultural crops. Trees and crops are then cut and burnt as biomass in a bioenergy plant to provide heat, electricity, or even hydrogen. The resulting carbon dioxide is captured, pressurized, transported, and stored underground. As a bonus, more CO2 is removed from the atmosphere when the forests or crops are replanted after harvesting. It's brilliant and fail-safe, or so the Cheshire Cat claims. Because with BECCS we can burn biomass without a care in Wonderland and bury the resulting emissions underground, out of sight and out of mind, turning a carbon-neutral energy source into a carbon-negative one, which is bandersnatch brilliant because we must keep carbon dioxide below 430 parts per million to stop the global temperature rise from topping 1.5 degrees. This won't be easy though, because not only are we fast approaching this limit, we are still pumping a Jabberwocky monster 35 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. Which is why BECCS is the best thing since sliced bread, or sliced trees, or even shredded wheat, according to BECCS supporters who include not just the Cheshire Cat, but also the biomass and fossil fuel industries. They tell many tall tales, and short ones too. And yes, you guessed it, they want us to believe 6 more impossible things, namely that BECCS works and is carbon negative, and that biomass harvesting is sustainable and good for both biodiversity and other earthly resources, which is why BECCS really is the key to our energy transition. So let's go down each rabbit hole in turn and hope we don't encounter any pockets of sequestered CO2. BECCS works perfectly, the Cheshire Cat purrs, except it doesn't yet. There isn't a single BECCS plant producing substantial negative emissions anywhere in Wonderland. One problem, you see, is that highly compressed CO2 is so fruminous it needs to be safely and permanently stored, just like nuclear waste. Highly compressed CO2 isn't just lethal, it has a tendency to leak and cause small earthquakes when injected underground. BECCS is also expensive and very inefficient. It would be so much better and cheaper just to let the trees do the job. The truth is, BECCS is currently wishful theoretical thinking, and as we keep trying to straighten our theoretical thinking, the White Rabbit's pocket watch is ticking, and CO2 levels are rising. The Cheshire Cat's second claim is pie in the sky, straight from the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. The Mad Hatter, who isn't mad at all by the way, says biomass really isn't carbon neutral because burning biomass belches even more CO2 than burning lifeless lumps of coal. And then the biomass needs time to regrow before it can start recapturing CO2, which, in the case of most trees, is a very long time indeed. And, as the White Rabbit knows, time is fast running out. But even if we did get our theoretical thinking straight, BECCS would only capture the CO2 released from burning the actual biomass. The Cheshire Cat conveniently forgets about all the other emissions burped and belched both before and long after. So you see, if carbon neutrality is a long tail, negative emissions technology is an even longer one. But let's pretend we can make BECCS work. Just how much biomass would we need to feed all those fruminous furnaces? Well, the Mad Hatter, who I must remind you isn't nearly as mad as the Cheshire Cat, says we would have to grow a Jabberwocky monster much area of biomass 1 to 2 times the size of the Kingdom of India, and even that may not be enough, or that it would keep global warming to below 2 degrees, never mind 1.5. So where will we grow the food for our tea parties if nearly half our fields grow biomass destined to go up in smoke? How much do you think strawberries and cream will cost if there's nowhere left to grow them? Probably much more than a Queen of Hearts ransom. An even bigger question is, where will the bread and butterflies and jubjub bird live? It's bad enough cutting down lush forests to burn, but even worser replacing them with plantations and monocultures. Plantations and monocultures are bad news for bread and butterflies and jubjub birds, and they don't capture carbon dioxide nearly as well as natural forests, which also look nicer and really don't need much maintaining after all, whatever the Cheshire Cat claims. Another thing biomass needs is monster Jabberwocky lots of water. How much, you want to know? Twice the amount of water we already use to grow all the food we eat, according to the Mad Hatter. He says growing so much biomass would also seriously affect our planetary boundaries. All you need to know about planetary boundaries is that you really shouldn't cross them. Why not? Because crossing them could result in large-scale, abrupt, even irreversible environmental changes. Well, I'm sorry, but you did ask. Wonderland has well and truly been turned on its head. Instead of belching less CO2, we are wasting time with theoretical thinking and pie-in-the-sky promises to capture those fruminous carbon burps. And also the Cheshire Cat and his fat cat friends in the biomass and fossil fuel industries can go on burping and belching CO2 and snicker-snackering through forests with galumphing costs and consequences. BioEnergy has the most Jabberwocky monster footprint of all types of energy. So let's stop burning things, but particularly forests, and leave them to do what BECCS cannot, to capture CO2 not just better, but also for free. Time is ticking, and the deadline fast approaching, but we can still act. We must stop listening to the Cheshire Cat's tall and short tales for a start. Then we must reduce our emissions as fast as we can without relying on pie-in-the-sky promises. We can do this by cutting our demand for energy by adapting our homes, power and transport systems. And we must give up our belief in the immaculate combustion once and for all. Burning bioenergy releases CO2 just as surely as burning fossil fuels, but burning bioenergy just releases more CO2 because it is less energy dense. And we absolutely must stop cutting and burning forests as we are currently doing, because burning trees doesn't just release CO2, it destroys the very mechanism that captures CO2 and cleans the air. So you see, BECCS really is nothing more than out of the panacea in a flash and into the fire. Wonderland's forests don't just capture and sequester carbon dioxide, they are also home to wonderlicious jubjub birds, bread and butterflies, caterpillars and mad hatters. They give us magic mushrooms, wild strawberries and clean drinking water, and protect us from landslides and avalanches. And they are playgrounds for big, small and future Alices. Forests are so much more than just a collection of trees. We really, really must stop burning them, or anything else for that matter. So next time someone asks what you think about BECCS, I hope you will know what to answer.